The president says he will sign an executive order by the end of the week to protect public statues and federal monuments, to protect them from mobs. And hundreds of National Guard soldiers and U.S. Marshals been brought up by the president and put on standby to help protect historical monuments in Washington, D.C. The radical left is trying to tear down American history, even removing the statues of people who fought to free the slaves in the Civil War, including General Ulysses S. Grant. Joining us tonight, Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, who has written on this on FoxNews.com and who has strong opinions about all of this that we are seeing from the radical Dems and the left-wing mob that is somehow managing to get away with destroying property and heritage contemporaneously. Your thoughts, Congressman, if you will, on how in the world so many mayors are allowing mobs to run through their cities and destroy monuments and to behave unlawfully.
Well, they're simply not upholding the law. There are laws on the books right now where those individuals should be prosecuted. I give President Trump a lot of credit for stopping it, because what he's been able to do is bring in the National Guard. This left-wing mob is trying to tear down Abraham Lincoln's emancipation. They literally said they're going to do it tonight at 7 o'clock. Well, when they show up, there'll be National Guard around. That is what cities should be doing around the country. And if they do not do that, then they shouldn't be getting federal money. If they won't uphold the law, they should not be getting taxpayers' money. That's what I propose doing to force them, because we do not need these autonomous zones that are happening in Seattle and others. America is too great for such a small, stupid idea such as that. And if the mayors won't stand up, we will.
You know, and I congratulate you for standing up. I want to point to some people who are not standing up.
Yes.
But first, let's share with the audience the president's views and what he has said about this. Here is President Trump on this very issue.
I think many of the people that are knocking down these statues don't even have any idea what the statue is, what it means, who it is. They're looking at George Washington. They're looking at Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Not as long as I'm here.
The president making it very clear. Where is the conference? Where are other Republicans standing up with this president and having the guts to say to these ignorant mobs, stop it now, and to the ignorant, principally Democrats who are mayors and governors, stop it now? Before, I just can't believe what we're watching here as a nation, as we are we have elected officials and law enforcement officials just permitting wanton destruction of public property.
Exactly, but they'll arrest you if you go to church. What we're finding here is the Democrats' silence on this destruction is shameful. What we have found is inside the Republican conference, you see us standing up a number of pieces of legislation, the president standing up time and again. But a lot of these jurisdictions happen to become local. So how can we make sure that they stand up for the rule of law, the foundation of America? Look at Nancy Pelosi's district. You know who got torn down? What statue? St. Sarah. St. Sarah, who had in 2015, I stood with Nancy Pelosi and the Pope and prayed before the statue of St. Sarah in the Capitol. She has said nothing about this. They want to go after Ulysses S. Grant that fought. Look what they did in Wisconsin. Not only did they tear a statue down of somebody who fought slavery, they knocked out a Democrat state senator, literally knocked him out. This is this mob mentality that goes against the rule of law. And Lou, you understand this better than anybody else when it comes to the Constitution and others. One of the greatest foundations we have in America is the rule of law. They are going against the rule of law. And if we break down the rule of law, we will lose society. And that's the goal behind a lot of these people. If you ask them their philosophical beliefs, they're Marxists, they're socialists, and they're overriding, taking a situation beyond where they should be and trying to tear down the history of this nation. And we all should stand up against it.
Well, I certainly I hope that both Democrats and Republicans will do so and follow this president's lead because it's past time that they begin to do so. Congressman, it's always good to see you. Thank you for your words here tonight. Congressman Kevin McCarthy.